Hello everybody, and welcome to my first video regarding Farming Simulator 21, or maybe I should say the next Farming Simulator game, as we don't know for sure that it's going to be called FS21. If it's following the current trend though, then it likely will be. A few days ago I posted a question to my viewers, basically asking them what they would like to see in an upcoming Farming Simulator game. Of course the game isn't confirmed, but you would imagine, following the success of Farming Simulator 19, that it is highly likely going to happen. Anyway, my post very simply says, let's start this discussion early. What main new features would you like to see in the next Farming Simulator game, potentially called FS21? And as you can see, I have received 1,498 likes and 1,315 responses. Clearly, the players of Farming Simulator feel very strongly about what features are put into the game. So let's start the unofficial top 10 countdown of the potentially upcoming game. At number 10 we have more crop and animal types. Despite Farming Simulator now having the most crop types to date out of all of the Farming Simulator games, it actually only scratches the surface of different crop types grown around the world. It may not be until you start thinking about the different crop types that you realise how many are missing from the game. I know that some of them are maybe a bit of a niche, but it would still be nice to have a lot more than what we currently have. Just to name a few which were requested: carrots, onions, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, peas, beans, and other fruits such as strawberries, apples and pears. There was also the request to have more animal types as well. I think they should also incorporate different breeds of each animal type instead of just a generic animal, so it's not just a cow or a pig. Now I must say that this has actually already started to be introduced to the Farming Simulator series, since they now have the Brahman cow as well, but then everything else is still just called sheep, pig, horse, etc. Number 9. Realistic attaching. This is referring to attaching implements or trailers to a tractor. Now we do already have the manual attach mod, which is a very good mod. However, many players would like to see this feature in the game as standard and also made even more interactive, so you actually have to plug the hydraulic hoses into the tractor, fit the PTO, maybe even make that even more detailed as well, instead of just pressing a button on the keyboard. There's so many more things that can be done, whereas in the base game of Farming Simulator, without manual attach, all you do is reverse up to a trailer and press Q. That is for PC players, of course. However, I do just want to add that not all of the fitting of the trailer is necessarily done from outside of the cab. Certainly in the UK, some trailers you would actually pick up from inside the tractor. You then go round the back and put the hydraulics in, air brakes and all that kind of stuff. Number 8. Claas Machinery. Now as we know, Claas as a brand has been highly requested to be in the game. We don't currently know if it's going to be put into Farming Simulator 19, so we might just have to wait and see. Nothing has been confirmed. However, if it is not put into 19, then this will of course stay on the top 10 list of wanted brands. Regardless of if it's actually put into 19, many players do want it to continue over to 21 or whatever the game is going to be called. I believe this also comes under number 8 as well. There have been many players who have been disappointed with the amount of machinery from each brand. Personally, I'm very happy with the amount of machinery in the game. However, I must admit that with John Deere, when that was announced to be in 19, I think we were all expecting a bit more John Deere machinery than was actually put into the game. It's all very nice having these machines, but I do feel that we are lacking quite a few of the different John Deere implements. I would also just like to add here that this is not a complaint, this is an observation which will hopefully allow Giants to improve the Farming Simulator game in the future. Number 7. Smarter workers. Now I've been playing this game since it was first released, starting with Farming Simulator 2008, and I can very confidently say that the worker system has improved dramatically over that time. In fact, in Farming Simulator 2008, there was no worker. When the system was first implemented into the game, you could almost say it was a game changer. It improved the game so much, allowing you to have a worker continuing to cultivate your field or harvest your field whilst you went off and did another job. It was really important that this was added to the game. However, although it has improved dramatically over time, many players do feel that it should be even more intelligent than what it is now. Maybe it should even act as if it was a real person driving the tractor. The general feeling that I get from the comments which have been left is when you get a tractor to work in a field, you expect it to be able to do the job correctly without ever crashing into a tree. Also, many believe it should be enhanced so that you can tell it to do a bit of grain carting, for example, so tractor and trailer work, and it will then drive alongside the combine which you're driving, drive to a sell point, tip the load, and very safely drive back to the field and get the next load out of the combine. So intelligent workers. Since we have all witnessed the worker system improving over every version of Farming Simulator that is released, hopefully in the next version it will be even better again. Number 6. Older machinery. Every version of Farming Simulator has actually featured older machinery mixed in with the newer stuff. However, I think the general feeling again is that there isn't enough of the older machinery. You're almost forced to buy the really expensive machinery if you ever want to expand the farm. You can stick with the older stuff, but you can't then expand your range of vehicles with different sized older machinery. You just have the old small machinery, and then you must improve by going to brand new machinery, which is very expensive. Going all the way back to Farming Simulator 2009, you started off with a very small green vintage tractor branded as a Lizard. I believe this is actually a John Deere. You also started off with a yellow combine harvester branded as a Lizard, which I believe is a New Holland. This is very nice. It just goes to show that vintage, or just simply older machinery, has always been on the minds of the creators of Farming Simulator. The issue is they've just never had the range of sizes of machines. Now, I must admit that even the largest of machines back in the 80s, for example, were nowhere near the size of machines these days. Like, the biggest combine harvester these days was just ridiculous for 1980s standards. However, they could still have the range of the smallest machinery you could buy back then, and the largest, even though the largest would not even compare with modern machinery. Number 5. GPS. Many modern machines these days are fitted with GPS for several different reasons. Just to name a few, one is to reduce fuel costs, there is also the precise accuracy with the system, and it also takes some of the strain off the machinery operators. It's quite interesting that GPS isn't actually in the game, since the first thing you see when you load up the Farming Simulator 19 game is a tractor with a GPS system fitted to it. As we all know, in the game it's all for show, because you cannot use it, there is no GPS. This has been very highly requested by the players of Farming Simulator, so hopefully it is going to be implemented into any upcoming version of the game. As many of us are aware, there have been GPS mods in the past in the Farming Simulator franchise. There's also GPS alternative mods. However, there is nothing official by Giants and nothing in the base game. Number 4. Used machinery. Now, this might sound a bit similar to number 6, which was the older machinery. However, it is quite different. The reason for this is it doesn't have to be old to be used. As soon as a machine has been used for, well, I guess you could say a few minutes on a farm, it is then technically used, although that might be exaggerating it a bit. The point here though is that players would like to be able to buy nearly new, or maybe quite old machinery for a reduced price. Many players have found it relatively difficult to expand farms because it is quite expensive to keep buying new machinery every time. Sometimes you just have to go for something used, but if it's not available, it makes it very hard to expand the farm. Number 3. Seasons. Many players would like to see seasons in the game as standard. Having said this, some have actually expressed that they do not necessarily want to play seasons all the time, so maybe having an option for this would be a good idea. As we all know, the seasons mod is a game changer. I think really the point which is trying to be brought across here is it just wants to be in the game as an option, as standard. Number 2. The ability to move animals between different grass fields that you own. This is quite an interesting one since it did feature on my previous top 10 request list for the upcoming Farming Simulator 2019 game. However, the wish was not completely fulfilled. Although you can now place your own animal enclosures and pastures, these are obviously fixed objects, you cannot go moving them around, they're not portable. Players would like to be able to, for example, put some sheep into a trailer, transport them to another field so they can go and graze the land. And of course they don't necessarily have to be transported in a trailer, maybe you have to walk them through to another field. They just want to be able to put them into a different grass field of their choice which they own on the farm. I would now like to draw attention to this comment that was left, which is very interesting. This is by Will. So thank you to Will. Improved livestock situations. For example, you can move livestock into different fields depending on how much grass or feed there is there. A control panel in-game could suggest locations for livestock and how much a bunch of sheep are eating, for example. Now I think that would drastically improve the reality of the game and really bring it to a new level. I agree with this comment, it's a very good idea. Now of course, in real life you can put the sheep in the field, they can graze the land which is there. In Farming Simulator you do have to keep giving the food to the animals in their feed trough, which makes perfect sense as well. However, they do have food from other sources. And just focusing on the part of the comment where it says about moving the animals, because they do eat the grass on that section of the field, or maybe the whole field. Obviously the grass doesn't really grow at exactly the same rate that they eat it, so it's not just some infinite supply. They do have to be able to move to another area to graze. Number 1. Dynamic ground and mud. Believe it or not, this was actually at the top of the previous top 10 request list for Farming Simulator 19. It is still at the top of the list, which is no surprise. However, I think all of us will feel quite strongly about the way this is done. I can imagine that nearly everybody would agree with this comment, and that is that if it's going to be put into the game, it has to be done so well that it doesn't sort of mess up the current feel of the game. The game is so replayable, it's addictive. You don't want it to sort of mess it up and make the game feel a bit clunky and not really that fun to play anymore. So it's best to either be perfect or not in at all, which I know is quite difficult. The comment regarding mud also did crop up quite a bit. When it rains, many players would like some areas to go quite muddy, with the potential of getting stuck. This allows me to now focus on the game's spin tyres, of course by a different developer, but you can see how the mud here, it's so dynamic. It's very realistic, and if this was implemented into some areas of a map in Farming Simulator, it would be quite incredible. Now of course you would not want this everywhere because it would make the farming almost impossible, but just a few areas which you might want to just avoid because you know it's a wet area, it would be very interesting. And finally, regarding the dynamic ground, many players would like to be able to dig the ground, so you can dig it with a excavator or maybe just a tractor and bucket, anything, just so that you can actually scoop the ground up. It's not just rock hard like it is currently. Firstly, I'd just like to thank everybody for watching this video. Secondly, I must just emphasize that this video has not one bit been a complaint video. I have purely made this to help Giants in the future with any upcoming game that they make, and also that the opinions here are by my viewers and not necessarily the whole of the Farming Simulator players. Of course, you had to be on my community page to post a suggestion, so yes, it's not necessarily everybody, just a select few, but having said this, still quite a number of people. So hopefully Giants have found this useful, and hopefully everybody else has enjoyed watching this, and I think really all we can do is hope for the best in the future. Now of course there will be other features which were not put into this video. These are because they were not in my top 10, however they might potentially be in a future top 10 countdown which I do, depending on how everybody's feelings change over the next few months. And also the next game, if there's going to be one, likely won't be until the end of next year. So all we can do is wait and see, and hopefully there'll be some news from Giants in a year or so. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.